Well, let's begin today with a look at the economy. Jobs numbers are out, and according to the Bureau of Labor Statistics, the unemployment rate fell, just slightly though, to 8.1% in the month of April. That is the lowest since January of 2009, the month that President Obama first took office. Non-farm employers added 115,000 jobs to their payrolls last month. Still, that is well below the 170,000 jobs economists predicted would be added. And as far as that slowly declining unemployment rate, experts say that was largely due to about 342,000 people actually leaving the labor force altogether. Now, these numbers, of course, being spun in every which way today. The Obama administration pointing out, hey, this is the 26th month in a row that this economy has seen private sector job growth. Conservative pundits reminding people there are about 12.5 million people who are still unemployed and a record 88.4 million considered not in the labor force. We want to talk more about all of this with Peter Schiff, president at Euro Pacific Capital. Hey there, Peter. Happy Friday. Let me get your take, first of all, on the story behind these numbers.
Well, you pointed it out already in your graphic. 3 times as many people left the labor force as found jobs. That's a disaster. Why are 300,000 Americans taking themselves out of the labor force? Because there's no jobs available. And so they'd rather go on disability or, early retirement, whatever they're doing. But we're not creating enough jobs. And if you look at the jobs that we created, we're still creating the wrong kinds of jobs. It's still mainly service sector, retail, finance, healthcare, education. We only created 16,000 manufacturing jobs. That was, I think, a 5 or 6 month low. But we need to create 160,000 manufacturing jobs every month for years. We need to produce more things so we can rein in our trade deficit. The jobs that we are creating are making us poor and not richer because they're the wrong kinds of jobs, because the government is interfering with the free market's ability to rebalance our economy.
Well, let me ask you a question, and this is a question I'm repeating that I've heard over and over today, especially from some of those conservative pundits from Mitt Romney. The question, where are the jobs? The good kind of jobs.
Well, they're in other countries. I mean, think about how expensive the U.S. government makes it to hire Americans. A lot of businesses do whatever they can to avoid hiring Americans because of all the rules and all the regulation and all the litigation. It's just too expensive. That's the problem. And another problem is we don't have enough capital because we don't have enough savings. Nobody's saving any money because interest rates are at zero. The only new money that comes into the economy is via the Fed, and it distributes it through Wall Street. And they're not going to invest in plant and equipment. They're not going to build factories with that money. They're just gambling with it. So none of this is producing real economic growth.
Peter, let's take a look at what's going on overseas. We know, as we've been watching over the last several months, what's been going on in Greece, where more than 20% unemployment is.
Oh, yeah. Well, we probably have an unemployment rate close to that right now. If you look at the U6, which is a better measure that the government puts out, which includes people who are working part-time who would rather work full-time, you're looking at a number of about 15%. So, we're not that much farther behind Greece. But remember, Greece is dealing with these problems right now. They have much higher interest rates. Our interest rates are still at rock bottom. The last time we had a labor force participation rate this low in America was in December of 1981, when Paul Volcker was, slamming on the brakes. We had 20% interest rates. Now we got the pedal to the metal. We got 0% interest rates. We got QE, and we still don't have any jobs. Imagine what's going to happen when the Fed has to put on the brakes.
Well, that's what I'm wondering. I mean, do you foresee a situation in the U.S. in which it will get to that, in which we'll get to rioting and protesting in the street?
Most likely. I mean, I think it's going to get pretty ugly here when I think we have even more people unemployed, but we have escalating and maybe even skyrocketing prices for things like food and energy. And if the government makes the mistake of putting in price controls, which, I wouldn't put it past them, and then we have shortages of energy and basic food products, people aren't going to take too kindly to that. I mean, they don't like austerity in Greece. Americans aren't going to like it here either, especially since I think we're going to get a bigger dose of it.
Peter, I mean, you seem to be pointing your finger at things like price controls, at things like over-regulation. But there's got to be sort of a middle ground here, because obviously there needs to be certain things that are regulated, certain, everything from legal controls to environmental controls at businesses, at places that actually manufacture stuff. What does that middle ground look like?
Well, I mean, the best regulation is the free market. I mean, that's what regulates, because businesses want customers, and they attract customers by providing them with good products at the lowest possible price. And, the problem is most of the government regulation short circuits the free market regulation, and we get all sorts of moral hazards. We get companies doing things and taking risks and that they never would take in a free market if they had to be subjected to competitive forces. So yes, there is a role for some sensible government regulation, and in America, most of that regulation should take place at the local level or maybe the state level, not at the federal level. But we've gone way past the realm of sensibility. We have got regulations that are strangling this economy, that are preventing free market forces from operating. They're preventing the economy from growing. They're forcing jobs and capital out of the country. And we need to repeal these rules and regulations as quickly as we can.
I want to talk just for a second about the politics of this. The Heritage Foundation today put out a memo saying the U.S. economy only added 115,000 jobs last month, well below expectations and far, far below what is necessary to drive the employment, to drive the economy back to full employment. Full employment, I mean, is that really the new conservative tagline? In his 4 years as president, Obama, didn't promise to get this country to full employment, but I don't even think that's possible. I guess I'm just wondering sort of the political spin machine that's happening today.
Well, it's not possible now, given the current framework, given the monetary and fiscal policy that we have. We're going to have full unemployment, maybe. That's the only thing we're going to get. And, think about what's happening to the economy as more and more people leave the labor force, right? They're no longer paying taxes. They're not part of the tax base anymore. They're not contributing. They're drawing from society's resources. And, a lot of these people are just going on disability. Look at the claims for disability have skyrocketed through Social Security. Now, do you think these people are really disabled? No. I think what's happening is they're using the disability laws, to take advantage of that because they can't find any jobs. And now, instead of paying taxes, they're going to be drawing down benefits.
But I guess I'm just wondering, as I said, everything is political. And, even if the unemployment rate were at 6%, it seems that those who oppose Obama and oppose some of the practices, out there right now, they would say, oh, yeah, well, that's just because everyone's stopped looking. And of course, this is the way politics works. But what would it take for the more objective people to say, yes, the president has done a good job getting this economy back on track?
Well, he hasn't done a good job. So, I mean, the only one who can say that is somebody who's spinning it. Maybe people, part of his campaign team. But the president has done a horrific job. Look, I'm not saying that he was dealt a good hand. He was dealt a lousy hand. But he played it badly. And now the hand is even worse. He promised to change the policies that created the problem. Instead, he expanded on those very policies. All we got is more of the same, only in bigger doses. And so he's inherited a bad situation, and he's made it a lot worse. And unfortunately, we are staring at a much greater economic crisis coming soon, probably in the next few years, than 2008. That's the subject of my new book, that comes out, I think, in 2 weeks, The Real Crash, America's Coming Bankruptcy. That lays it out exactly what's going to happen to this country and why. I also have a lot of solutions, what we need to do to reform government so that the free market can solve the problems that government created. But we don't have a lot of time to implement these solutions.
Right, absolutely, and we'll keep our eyes on it. But it seems these numbers, no matter how you look at it, aren't as good as at least the majority of people hoped. Peter Schiff, president at Euro Pacific Capital.